Welcome, everybody. I'm Angela Unk, Director of Development at the Clements Library. I just want to point out that today's meeting is being recorded to share online, and later today or tomorrow, you'll receive an email with the recording and the resources mentioned during today's broadcast. This program is brought to you by the William L. Clements Library, located on the campus of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. The graphics division of the Clements Library is comprised of visual materials of many genres and formats. The collection is curated to support the overall subject strengths found in the library's books, manuscripts, and maps, as well as offering unique research opportunities in American visual culture. I'm really happy to introduce Clayton Lewis, who has served as the curator of graphic materials since 2002 and oversees the Clements collection of historical prints, photographs, artwork, illustrated sheet music, ephemera, and other visual materials. In addition, today we have three wonderful panelists to talk with us about collecting. Len Wally is a Clements Library Associate Board of Governors member and began collecting at an early age with fossils such as Petoskey stones and stamps featuring history and geography. He enjoys researching and learning the story behind an object and sharing that knowledge through writing and presentations. Len, I love this beautiful Ansel Adams photograph titled Clearing Winter Storm, and your description of finding beauty in your pieces and living with your collection. And I hope you talk about that a little more later in the program.
We'll try.
Excellent. Cindy Matzenbecker is our next panelist, and you'd be hard pressed to find things that Cindy doesn't collect.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Cindy has been a longtime member of the Clements Library Associates, as well as participating in many other local organizations, such as the PHS that we were talking about earlier. Today, Cindy will mostly be discussing her collection of occupational photographs. And our final panelist is Richard Pohrt Jr., who you met last week if you were watching our episode 3. Dick lives here in Ann Arbor, is a University of Michigan graduate, also a member of the Clements Library Associates Board of Governors, and a collector of historic Native American photographs. So Clayton is going to lead the discussion. He's going to moderate a discussion with our panelists for about 35 minutes. And then after that initial discussion, I'll come back and help with the Q&A. So I want you to take note, please, that there is a Q&A button where you can type in your questions as you have them. And you can also see the questions that other people are asking. And there's a thumbs up icon where you can like the comment. And that helps move the most popular questions to the top of the queue. In addition, you're welcome to comment on those questions and write a reply to an existing question or type an additional question related to that one, and then your comment appears right beneath the question. In addition, my colleagues Tracy Payovich and Ann Bennington-Helber will be helping monitor the chat and answering questions in there and providing additional information. So with that, Clayton, I invite you to take it away.
Thank you, Angela. I've been really looking forward to this afternoon, and I'm hoping that this virtual session will replicate the kind of wonderful conversations that we have often had over the years with these same collectors, and the kind of personal show and tells that are so rewarding, both as a curator and as a collector. And I'm honored to be sharing this virtual space with the three wonderful friends and wonderful collectors. And I'd like to start with a very general collection question. I'll begin with you, Len. Can you tell me, how did you get into collecting, and does your collection have a purpose?
Well, Clayton, it really began at an early age. When I was 7 years old, I was given a Ansco Sure Shot box camera for my birthday. And that started me out photographing and learning what I could do and what I couldn't do with this camera. I don't know, can people see this camera?
Can you hold it up a little higher? Oh, yeah.
My first camera. It has a fixed shutter speed of about a 60th of a second, fixed aperture, and a very nice large negative that's roughly 2.5 by 3 inches. So you got a nice big negative, but you couldn't do this without direct sunlight. And I learned at an early age that some of the photos came out well and some didn't. And it got me curious as to why that happened. And I realized that I could not use this camera to shoot at the zoo indoors, or I could not use it to shoot directly into the sun. But every now and then I got a great photo, and it made the process worthwhile. At the same time, I started collecting stamps, as mentioned in the introduction, and that really gave me an introduction to history and geography. And later on, when I went to school, especially high school history, I just listened to the teacher talk about the history. I read the book like a novel. It was never really a challenge for me. It just came naturally, but that was because of the world that opened up to me with stamp collecting and the history that was on the stamps, as well as the language. And that led eventually to narrowing it down when I was in high school to collecting rather than globally US. But at the same time, I was photographing, and I got more serious as I got older. I got upgraded to a Kodak camera with a flash attachment so I could photograph indoors. And then eventually it led to a rangefinder, 35mm rangefinder, and then a reflex camera, which I loved, with interchangeable lenses. And this was all before digital photography. But I really learned the impact of exposure, shutter speed, depth of field, started taking some darkroom courses, took a course under Howard Bond, who's an Ann Arbor fine art photographer, on the zone system. And after I took that course in 1977, 78, I took a workshop under Ansel Adams. But before we go there, in 71, a magazine called Camera 35 came out, and there was an article by Pearl Korn. And the article was collecting old photographs for fun and profit. Well, I wasn't interested in the profit, I was interested in the fun. And this article talked about the different early photographic processes of the 19th century. And I thought it'd be interesting to get an example of each, which would be a daguerreotype and an ambrotype and a tintype, stereo view and albumin print. And that started me collecting 19th century. And the problem is it didn't stop with one. I got so fascinated with 19th century photography, the history, the beauty of some of the photographs, especially the daguerreotypes, which were totally captivating, that it led to today. I mean, I've been collecting ever since. At the same time, though, I took that course in Yosemite in 1979 under Ansel Adams and spent a week there with Ansel and the other workshop instructors. And I don't know, there we go. That's a picture of Ansel holding our oldest son, David. David was 6 months when that photo was taken. And that was really a wonderful experience. It gave me an understanding of the photographic print as a fine art, because Ansel believed that there were two aspects of fine art photography. One was taking the photograph, composing it, taking it, but the other one was making the print in the darkroom. And that's where he developed the zone system, and I won't get into that. But the second part of your question, does collecting have a purpose? Well, usually it does, but not always. But there are a number of sub-collections within the whole collection that's been formed over almost 50 years now. My first love has been portraits. And when you talk about captivating, you really have to hold the daguerreotype to fully appreciate it. But this young girl with her doll and those piercing eyes totally captivated me, and it's almost haunting. And I enjoy looking at this because using my imagination, who is the doll? I think the doll is the girl. I think there are two dolls in that photograph. Another area of interest has been occupationals. We could switch to the, there we go. This I acquired at the Walled Lake Flea Market back in 1978. It is a whole plate ambrotype of the Franklin Hose Company number 5 in Utica, New York. I contacted the library in Utica, and they were able to identify every single person in that photograph.
Ooh, cool.
For example, one person is the butcher, the other person's the janitor at the city hall, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got the torch boy, and the back side of that glass negative, which is turned into a positive, is that has been colored with red coloring to make it even more interesting. But a real cornerstone of my daguerreotype collection is the next one, which are the two blacksmiths. I just fell in love with this photograph. It belonged to John Craig. John was an early collector, dealer. He's known for the Craig Directory of Daguerrean photographers, the same way Dave Tinder is known for his directory of Michigan photographers. But this photograph is very carefully composed. I mean, those blacksmiths, my grandfather was a blacksmith, and I used to watch him at the forge, and he did not wear a white dress shirt when he worked at the forge. I mean, you look at the lighting, there's side lighting coming in from the window, the hammer is being held up, stop action, and the daguerreotype was a relatively slow process, so he had to hold that pose in stillness for that exposure to take place. Moving on, I have an interest in painting because my great-grandfather and great-great-grandfathers were artists, they were painters, and we grew up in a modest home in Detroit, but we had paintings on the walls from them, and I grew up with paintings. And I really couldn't afford paintings that I liked, but photographs were very affordable back in the 70s and 80s, and to some degree today, depending upon the area. But I have a collection involving painters in their studios, Albert Bierstadt, Frederick Church, Thomas Moran, both in their studios and in the field, mostly stereo format. I have an interest in sculptures, Hiram Powers and Erastus Palmer. The play of light on the marble reminds me of the play of light in a daguerreotype. Also, a daguerreotype is meant to be held and viewed. It's an intimate experience. And with sculpture, actually sculptures are tactile, and they really are meant to be touched. My wife is a pottery collector, and pottery collectors don't just look at the pots, they hold those pots. And that's true with daguerreotypes and sculpture. I have an interest in exploration. I have a background in science, a degree in chemistry from U of M. So the whole interaction of science and mapping and surveying and artists and exploration, mostly the US, although outside the US to some degree. I have an interest in astronomy and an astronomy collection. 19th and early 20th century, I thought about becoming an astronomer when I was going to college, but it became so much focused on math and theoretical rather than visual, and I'm a visual person, that I eventually went down the road of chemistry. I have an interest in Edward Muybridge and Carlton Watkins, mostly in stereo, because you can compare the two photographers and how they worked, and you can actually get inside their heads when they compose their images with stereophotography, the sequence of those images. Have an interest in Michigan, especially in stereo. Developed an interest in early French photography. Up till then, up to 2000, my focus was on American photography, but I acquired an early French daguerreotype of an artist with a schmuck. And then when I retired, I went to Paris, and that in turn led me to caricature, and I started studying and I wrote about caricature. About 20 years ago, I started getting interested, just picked up a few CDVs and photographs of women such as Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Queen Victoria. And all of a sudden I started realizing that I had a miniature collection. A collection is 3 of something, of women. So I added Sojourner Truth and Mother Jones, Rosa Bonheur, et cetera, et cetera. And it led to an interest of how women were portrayed from Queen Victoria all the way to today. And that insight gives you an insight on feminine identity, of how women were portrayed both in graphics and in photography. And finally, I have an interest in social history, and a great aspect of that is in real photo postcards, which I'm sure some of the other panelists would discuss. So that's a long answer to 2 questions.
Well, Cindy, I know that even you and Len are good friends and have been collecting partners and rivals for a long time, but how did you get started in collecting? And does your collection have a purpose?
Oh, geez. I was pretty much collecting alone for a long time, and I heard about Dave Tinder. I heard about him for like 2 years, and I finally met him at the historic Fort Wayne flea market, running around trying. So I ended up with a partnership with him. Anything I found Michigan, he got. So, and this on the screen is my first photo, our first daguerreotype I ever bought. It was a whole $15, but I didn't want to buy just a boring one, but I found the one with the guy with the earring. And I thought, well, you know, I took it to work and showed it to the guys, and they said, well, he's either been around the Horn of Africa or South America, and then, or he's a sailor, and that's, if he drowned, that would be used to bury him for a Christian burial. So that was just, you know, that was the start of my occupationals too. And the purpose of my collection is, it's an opportunity to buy this stuff while it's available. And I'm so happy that Clements wants it, because my relatives don't care. It would all go in a dumpster. So
Cindy, you once mentioned that you feel like you're on a rescue mission.
Yeah, it's a rescue mission. It's a rescue mission. When you see it in the middle of a field and it's all wet and damp, you just got to take it home, especially if it's an indoor scene of a store, you know. And if it's thrifty, it's even better. So for a long time, I was just a bottom feeder, but now I can spend a little more money since we're comfortable now. Not in the days when I had to spend $15 on a beat up dag like this. It's supposed to say daguerreotype, not dag. So
it's a fantastic image, Cindy. Do you have any idea who he was or where it was taken?
No, there's no secrets inside the case. I have it here. And I don't know if you guys know about Sean Nolan's DDC. Maybe you could see it. He does, he has a free online book on the case, all the decorations around the edges. So he dates them all. And he's very, very specific about it. But he's just done one on daguerreotype plates too. It's all free online, and you could get, he sells his books at cost too. So there's another tidbit. Sean Nolan, I guess you'll need to know that information. I can give you that information later. So.
Thank you.
It's
so
a rescue mission. Rescue for the future.
So Richard, you've got a different entree into collecting historical photography. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. I originally started collecting historic Native American artifacts, and I was introduced to that through my father's interests. And we would always study historic photographs to gather the information that we could. They're really a primary source for information about tribal art styles and that sort of thing. Um, so I came to the collecting of photographs a little bit late, probably in the last 20 years or so. They were always in my radar, but I really wasn't plugged into the um, people and the places where these things surfaced and where you could begin to collect things. But I had a couple good friends who were voracious collectors of Native American photographs, and I would pay attention to what they were doing. And both of these individuals passed away in the last 20 years. And it's a narrow field. They dominated the collecting to some extent. But I was always plugged into that, and I decided I would once these folks had stopped collecting, that I had a little bit of an open field, and I was going to tackle it and see what I could do and what I could might be able to gather up and learn in the process.
Do you see that there's a purpose or a vision for your collection?
I would say my collecting has a focus in that I'm zeroed in on the period from about 1850 to 1900. The purpose, I would say, I think these stories need to be told, and these people should not be forgotten. I think there's a great interest in this part of American history, and I've challenged myself to put together from all these various sources, whether it's one at a time or half a dozen at a time, to put together a meaningful collection. And now that it's at the Clements Library, I hope that others will be able to appreciate and this material as much as I've enjoyed it, and it's enriched and informed my life.
Have you got a favorite item in your collection you can share with us?
Well, there we go, right up on screen. So I picked this particular photo because it is representative, you might say, of what really interests me from this time period, and in a historic photograph of Native Americans. And that is the historical events surrounding it. And you can look at, for me, it was to look at these photographs when I first encountered them and recognize it it's great condition. It's a rare photograph. We know who the photographer is. We know who is pictured. All this information, which we sometimes don't always find in a Native American photograph. Often it's anonymous photographer and anonymous, the people are not known. So this is a famous, well-known photograph, almost iconic photo from the Apache Wars of the 1880s. And this is, as you can see on the left, a scene in Geronimo's camp. And here the photographer has posed Geronimo and several of his warriors, including second from the left is his son named Chapo. And they're posed with, it was illegal to sell guns or ammunitions to the Apaches after 1868 in Arizona territory. But this band of Chiricahua with Geronimo as the war leader are fighting for their independence and the opportunity to maintain their traditional way of life. And they've been, for the last 20 years, squeezed by white settlers. And in fact, all the various Apache bands from throughout Arizona and New Mexico have already been settled on reservations. And this band of Chiricahuas, led by Geronimo, are the last group that is fighting for their freedom. And at the time of this photograph, they were being hounded by United States troops, and they offered to surrender and to go into council with General Crook. So General Crook came down from Fort Bowie in New Mexico to talk about the terms of surrender with Geronimo. What's interesting is that, and this is what I sort of been unpacking with these photos, is all the background. And I don't want to go on for an hour, but just to sort of summarize, Geronimo set the terms of the surrender. Crook came down to negotiate. It was a tense several days. They did not agree to the terms, and long story short, Geronimo left in the middle of the night with a number of his warriors, and it would be another 6 months before he finally surrendered. What's also interesting from a collector's standpoint is you can see on the back here that Fly had numbered the photographs, and he had exposed 19 plates, glass plate images, during the several days that he was down there with this negotiations. So then as a collector, the challenge is, what do the other 18 images look like? So that's been another challenge to collect the remaining group of images. And I think I now have like something like 8 or 9 of them. But it's a rare group, and it's also Camillus Fly is an interesting figure as well. He was based in Tombstone. He had heard about this pending council. He traveled to Fort Bowie, talked his way into tagging along with General Crook and his staff. The meeting was held in Sonora, Mexico, about 90 miles south of Fort Bowie. And so Fly tagged along, hoping to get these photographs of Geronimo's surrender. Didn't happen, but still, this is a very famous group of photographs, and sort of represents one representative example of what I'm interested in.
Thank you. I think at a previous conversation we had, you mentioned something about these photos are able to place a historic figure in a time and a place, in addition to being a visual likeness. And that for a historian, that certainly carries a lot of value.
Sure, it's one thing to read about these events, but to see these images that are unadorned in the field when they happened brings that subject to life.
So Len, same question for you, and favorite photos from your collection, and do they also fix people in a time and place?
Well, they do, Clayton. I picked two favorites from the astronomy collection. This is Henry Draper's Eclipse Party, 1878 in Rawlins, Wyoming. And he is standing to the right of the, one more over, how do we do this? He's standing dead center there with the hat in his hand, and his wife is standing next to him. And to the left of his wife in the center, I can't use, oh, there's my pointer. Can you see my pointer? I don't know that you can. Anyway, James Watson was included in that party. James Watson was the director of the University of Michigan Observatory, and that's his wife, Annette. And then to her right is Draper's wife, and that's Mary Anna Palmer Draper. She was the one that basically financed his interest in astronomy. She came from a very wealthy New York family. And then to Draper's right is young Thomas Edison, who was 31 years old.
Cool.
And there on the ground to the left is a taximeter. That was Edison's device. He wanted to measure the temperature of the corona of the sun when it was covered by the moon in the eclipse. And if you can see the telescopes coming through the chicken coop there, that was a chicken coop. And if you go back to the main picture, the full picture, there you go. You see the shiny telescope that's dead center? That's an Alvin Clark 4-inch telescope. Watson borrowed that telescope from Eastern Michigan. It was brand new. He borrowed it from Eastern Michigan, which at that time was a Michigan State Normal School. And so there's quite a bit of Michigan history here. I went to the Bobst Library at NYU and actually held the negative that Draper took of the sun when it was under total eclipse, because with these telescopes, rather than an eyepiece, you could attach a photo negative and actually photograph the sun. The second item is, let me hold this up. I don't know whether you can see this or not. I can't see my screen, but well, okay, we'll forget about the graphic. The second item was taken at Yerkes Observatory in 1921 when Albert Einstein visited the observatory, and that is the Yerkes refractor. It is the largest refracting telescope in the world. Was built and finished in 1893 and displayed at the Columbian Exposition. And there you have Einstein, as well as the members of the observatory. And to Einstein's right is the president of the University of Chicago. The University of Chicago ran that observatory. And I'd like to point out that Edwin Hubble studied there with that telescope and got his PhD in 1917. And so did Carl Sagan in 1960. And a major discovery with that telescope was that the Milky Way was a spiral nebula, which was not known until that time. So those are two favorites from the astronomy collection. The astronomy collection is pretty much fixed at this point. It's reached critical mass, and I really am not adding too much to it at this point.
I can't wait to ask Cindy what is a favorite item from her vast collection.
Oh,
Because I
well,
know you've got such an eclectic and broad ranging.
I didn't know where to start with that, so I just grabbed the biggest one. So I found this at one of our shows. It had gone through the whole show, and nobody bought it. And it came out of Ohio, and it's a daguerreotype mounted in marble, and I think somebody had probably liberated it from Italy and brought it to the U.S. during World War II. So, and I published this in the Daguerrean newsletter, but nobody came to take it away, so I still have it right behind me.
Can you lift it?
Yeah, it's a big moose. So you just so you get an idea how big it is. There's another picture of the image on it. I don't know if you can see it, but this lives on the mantle, and the cat can't knock it over.
Is
It's a
that
gorgeous picture of a woman. So
is that a tip for collectors? Collect things big enough that the cat can't knock them over?
yeah, it can be. It can be damage. Pet damages. There's a reason Len doesn't have any pets. Being allergic. So I don't know. It's just a fabulous image. And I can't take it apart. I would love to take it apart and clean the glass, but somebody glued the back on with epoxy. And if you tried to get that epoxy apart, it would dissolve the marble. So some things you just don't mess with. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. So, but I was very pleased to get it. And then somebody tried to buy it from me, and I said, I blew out some big amount of money, because, you know, if you buy something, you'd like to own it for 20 minutes before somebody's after you. He's like, no, we're going to save it for the Clements if they want it. So it works for me
Thank you.
to have a profit motive.
So Cindy, you're one of the more eclectic photo collectors I know, but is there anything in your collection that you would say is unexpected or surprising to you?
Well, like this one, I collect occupationals, and I saw the boots on the guys, and since I know a bunch of gay men, they'll go, oh, check out the leather. So I did. And there, look at what's on the bottom of their boots. So I don't know if these guys are ice guys or lumber. I don't know. Len, what do you think?
That's a good question. But they
Foam pole guys? Because look at the straps around the boots.
Yeah.
So,
that's what's fascinating about this hobby of collecting photographic images. There's so much content within the image that needs exploration on your part, and it's a matter of discovery.
Yeah, and then, you know, a lot of people see the chairs and the floor, the rug on the floor. They could find other photographs that have that on it, and then they know where it came from. But that's a little hard put with this one. There's nothing on the back of it, so. But it was, it's in pretty good shape. Oh, and this was a teacher. Very seldom do you see, usually you see teacher on the back. So this guy must have had a lot of money, and maybe he passed them out to his students. There's nothing on the back of this either. I haven't looked up in Ancestry or anything to see if what any more stories about him, but
he went to the trouble to have a printed mount made just for his own photograph.
Right, just for himself.
I like the blind stamp along the side.
Yeah, it talks about the patent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, get the bifocus on you. Everybody can see my nose real close. Then there's Jan's book on all the tintype patents, so you could check that out. Jan Schimmelman has a book that she wrote on tintype or on photographic patents.
Mm-hmm. An excellent book.
Yeah.
Len, are there any unexpected surprises in your own collecting world?
Well, I started out pretty much as a loner, and it's kind of a intimate process between you and finding an image that you know nothing about for the most part. But along the way, I've met a lot of really good people. I've befriended people. I've befriended collectors and curators and dealers and historians, and even the artists like Ansel. I mean, were making photographs and are making photographs today. An interesting experience was one of my collection, 100 images from my collection went on display at the Henry Ford Museum in 2000 when the Daguerrean Society met. And I'd never seen all the images displayed together. And putting that exhibition together and seeing how one photograph would interact with another photograph. And that's part of curating an exhibition. And that was a learning experience for me. That was a surprise. Building a reference library. I didn't start out building a reference library, but I certainly have one now. And finally, just learning to quietly look at a photograph and listen to it, and especially with daguerreotypes. And I think that Cindy and Dick will appreciate that as well, whether it's a daguerreotype or whether it's an albumin print. Photographs speak to you, and if you slow down, slowing down and listening to what that photograph has to say to you is an interesting experience that I never anticipated.
Excellent.
Gives you insight into another time. It's amazing how many people think that, what do you mean they didn't have TVs? You're like, really? You got to put yourself in a 19th century frame of mind to understand they didn't have all this incoming all the time. You had chores to do every day to survive, and that's not the way people live now. So it's kind of like postmortem photographs. It might have been the only time you had a photo of your family member. So,
Dick, are there any surprises in your collection?
I wouldn't call them so much surprises as I made a selection of a few, and what I'd say it's what I call my Native American art history segment, and it's I've collected some number of photos that answer questions or illustrate aspects of Native art that I find interesting, and you might not find such things in other such collections. And this little group here are photographs of Oto Indians. It's a small tribe. Historically, they were on the western side of the Missouri around Omaha, Nebraska. They're mentioned in Lewis and Clark's journals. Carl Bodmer painted an Oto on his trip up the Missouri in the 1830s. But we're going to flash forward here to about 1891. And one of the Oto chiefs had a vision during an illness and built a religious movement around that vision that he received. And sort of analogous to Wovoka, the Paiute who spread the ghost dance religion. The man who, the chief is the man on the left in the second photograph. His name is William Fawfaw. The man in the first photo, the vertical photograph, is a fellow by the name of Whitehorse. And the Oto Indians at this time had developed their own distinctive beadwork styles and designs. And there were these bold, dramatic, curvilinear elements in beadwork set against this wool cloth shirts, jackets, and leggings. But what makes these photographs most interesting to me is that the Oto women who did the beadwork incorporated elements from William Fawfaw's dream into the garments. And when William Fawfaw was going through this vision, two men came and spoke to him. And while this vision was, and at the same time, he noticed a cedar tree growing up beside him. After he recovered from his illness, he communicated the elements of his vision to other tribal members, and at the same time developed a set of rituals and a dance that was held several times during the course of the year. And the dance, or ceremony, you might say, involved going out on horseback and uprooting a young cedar tree, bringing it back to the dance circle and planting it, and then going back out and collecting some buffalo skulls to also put into the dance circle. So if we go back, I want to go back one photo here. Yeah. If you can see on White Horse's jacket, just peeking out under, on the left side, it's by his right elbow, is one of the cedar trees. And then right above, below the eagle feather fan, you can see partially, we'll see these better in succeeding photographs, image of a man and horses. And these may represent the riders who went out to gather the buffalo skulls and the cedar tree, or possibly during the ceremony, there would also be a giveaway where poor people of the tribe would be given blankets, or in some cases, horses. You move to the second photograph with, you can see more clearly the horses and on the figure on the right, the horses and the men there. And just below him are some stylized buffalo skulls incorporated into the beadwork. And then on this final shot here on the of the three men standing, notice the buffalo skulls on top of the breechcloth on the man on the left. So at this time, their art form was pretty well developed, but then they began integrating these elements from Fawfaw's vision. It's just a fascinating little moment in their history. The Oto were not a big tribe. At this time, they had been, when these photos were taken, they'd been removed to Indian Territory. They numbered about 400 people, and they were under, of course, monumental cultural change. The Dawes Act had recently been passed, and they were threatening to break up through the Allotment Act the reservation and their land. So this movement by Fawfaw was really to go back to the old ways, to discard the negative aspects of modern white culture, and do what they could to maintain their tribal identity and integrity and tribal values. It's really a rare group of photos, and there's others in the collection that represent this particular small, relatively unknown religious movement.
Thank you. It's a fascinating episode in history that I was unaware of until you presented these photos. Thank you for that.
And there's others in the collection that reflect other similar aspects or issues regarding Native American art history from this period.
Fantastic.
You're great.
So I have a question for you, Len, because you came into this as a photographer and with, trained under no less than Ansel Adams. has that experience changed the way you view photographs taken by others or historical photographs?
Well, it does from the standpoint that I understand the process and I understand what's involved in creating the photograph. But I see you have one of a daguerreotype from our collection on the screen now. It's probably the strongest image in our collection. It is extremely sensitive. You can look at a photograph emotionally, you can look at a photograph intellectually, or a combination of both. And I think this covers both. It's a family, and they're holding an image. I don't know whether it's a photograph or a drawing, but it's obviously her husband and their father. And I just refer to it as remembrance, but it's extremely strong. And it just does not let go of you. It's haunting, and it's also reflects the reality of the time when mortality rates were at a much younger age than they are today. And then there's a second photograph, if you could advance for me. There we go. I think collecting also involves your imagination. And this photograph of a pretty woman reminds me of Somewhere in Time. In 1980, there was a movie made, photographed on Mackinac Island called Somewhere in Time, where Christopher Reeves goes there for a vacation and encounters a photograph in his room of a beautiful woman. And it's a very romantic movie. And I just wonder, who is this person? What kind of a life did she live? I look at the piano curls coming down the side of her face. Again, some aspects of collecting are doing the research behind the image and the content of the image, and some just involve your imagination, because a lot of 19th century material is totally undocumented. So it's how you respond to it as a collector in that regard. And certain aspects of my collection are strictly along this line, and other aspects are very much into photo history and photo documentation.
Thank you. Cindy, I know you've prepared for us some of your most wonderful occupational images. What can you tell us about this fantastic sequence of photos we're about to see?
Well, when you guys asked me to come up with occupationals, I didn't quite know where to start, because it's like, that's what all of it is, a lot of it. So I just bought some stuff from the Pepper Broad auction. So, and that stuff came the day after Angela asked me for photos, and this is one of them. And it took me a minute to figure it out, but the guy on the left is holding like, I'm not much into horses, but he's holding like the bridle and stuff. And the other guy, you see the close-up of the grooming brushes. So that was like too cool. And the goofy backdrop, it's just great. That's another thing I collect. The backdrops are all artwork, like the guys on the right here. And then another first occupational I picked up was of an Iceman, because my father was an Iceman back in the 40s. Might have been 40s. And so, and I saw this one that came from the Pepper Broad auction of the Iceman. You very seldom see them holding the ice. So that one I had to have. That was a little bit pricey, but you got to go big or stay home, right? And that pick up women's jobs, and she's the maid cleaning the candle or the lantern glass. And then the guy on the left is more of a writer, and he's got his ink wells. He must have two kinds of ink. So it's like too cool. People didn't have TV. They had to go do something. And the guy on the left is a glove salesman, and he obviously has a lot of stock. And then the guy in the middle is a butcher, and he's sharpening his knives. And then the one on the right just came from the Pepper Broad auction of the butchers. And of course, you have to have a dog. You have a healthy dog to eat the scraps. They weren't going to eat the dog. It was not on their agenda. It wasn't an American thing. So, and then the guys on the left, they're see the split in his apron. So he does horse trading. Farrier is the word. So, and I don't know what the people with horses would know more than I, but I don't know what the bucket's for. But all I could think of is, can you smell those guys from here? So, and then the guys on the right with their tools, I think they're like blacksmiths, because there's no hooks on the hammers and they've got the tongs for holding things and pounding. And they're all wearing hats, all of them. And the guy's got a vest on with his watch chain. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, where it's at.
We could go all day, but I know we've got some questions piling up that we'd like to get to.
Oh, yeah.
Angela, should we head for answering some questions?
Sure. So real quick, before we do that, I will just do a couple of advertisements, and then we'll get to answering these wonderful questions. The Michigan Photographic Historical Society is hosting a virtual lecture with Jeff Rosenheim of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So we'll paste the link into the chat and provide it later in the email that we send. I know that Len and Cindy have been longtime members, as they mentioned earlier, and that should be a lot of fun on Saturday. In addition, if you haven't been watching the Clements Bookworm, on Fridays at 10 a.m. we're doing a variety of talks. This week it's a conversation between Clements director Paul Erickson and author Christopher Phillips about his new book, The Hymnal. And so I encourage you to sign up for that. Once you're signed up, you don't have to sign up again for those Friday programs. You'll receive an email inviting you to join live, or if you don't have time, you'll also receive an email with the recording. So that's a possibility. And we also have had some wonderful talks already about photographs, and we'll have more in the future. Also invite you to get involved with the Clements Library. We've been mentioning some of our wonderful collections that Clayton oversees. Online, we have a wonderful image bank with really just a small portion of our fantastic graphics, but please take a look and enjoy them and learn more about them, as well as some online exhibits that you can look at as well. And if you are enjoying these programs that we're putting on, please consider donating to the Clements Library as well. It helps us continue this digitization process, collect the materials and process them, and make them available for more discovery. So with that, I'm going to stop my little screen share here and see what kind of questions we have. We might have to go back to the screen share depending on what people are asking about. Clayton says that he would like to answer Betty's question live. What is the best way to organize and protect old black and white photos, mostly from 1915 to 1955?
Sure, yes, thank you for that question. The main principles for protecting historical photos are to keep them dry, keep them in the dark, and keep them in a relatively stable, cool environment. And 90% of photographic conservation and preservation is really environmental. There are online resources where you can buy archival acid-free boxes and containers for housing them. Archival grade Mylar envelopes and sleeves help to keep photos from sticking together. It doesn't You don't have to be a professional conservator to do this. Investing a little bit of money can go a long way, but mostly it's environmental. Keep them dry, keep them in the dark, and keep them in a
And
cool
do
environment.
not use those adhesive pages ever. No adhesive pages. Okay.
Oh, the photo albums that come with the adhesive already on them that can be trouble. Is that adhesive can seep through the back of the photo and permanently damage the image. And as far as the organization goes, well, that's up to you as a collector. I don't think any collector organizes their photos exactly the same. It depends on your priorities and your goals as a collector.
Okay, great. So asking about the blacksmith holding still, and how long would that take to properly expose it?
Well, I think originally back in the 40s, the exposure times were a good 5 minutes, but as the chemistry of the daguerreotype sensitizing advanced with the addition of bromine as well as iodine to sensitize the plate, the exposure times got shorter and shorter. So it really depends upon the amount of light, and I would say that pose is probably a couple of minutes at least.
That's impressive. You know, I can barely get my family to hold still for like a second with the digital cameras. I can't imagine a couple minutes.
Especially holding that hammer.
Right. Oh, Cindy, I know you said you'll send it, but the contact who dates the cases, that's Sean
Sean Nolan. He's on Facebook, and I'm sure if you Google Sean Nolan, he'll show up. But I'll also send you the links after this.
Okay, so we'll include that. Thanks. Right. Oh, somebody's wondering, Cindy, if the man ring could be a slave.
I don't think so. Because the slaves they'd put an earring up in the upper part of their ear. It wouldn't be where that was. It had it up here.
All right, good. Let's see. I think Nancy's question when I was watching was about the Geronimo image and wondering, Dick, where you found it and how long ago.
I found that from a collector friend of mine, and he had, it was actually a duplicate. That was the only way I got it away from him, and I had to pay dearly for it. I probably bought that, I'd say maybe 10 or 12 years ago, something like that. I've been chasing these Native American photos for close to 20 years now, and I think I've only seen 2 other examples of that image come up at auction, neither of which was in the kind of condition that my example or the Clements example is. So those fly photos are, I don't think anyone can ever put that collection together. They're just that scarce. Fortunately, some of the better images are a little relatively more common than others, which are, I put you'll see, I think, a reference to a great little publication that Arizona Historical Society produced. And if someone's really interested in these fly photographs, all the 18 examples are mentioned. There we go. And I believe that little booklet, little monograph is available for $5. And it's really worth having if that image and that subject is of interest.
Thank you. So Len, someone is asking about the woman standing front and center in the Yerkes image with Einstein. Do you want me to pull it back up?
Well, I pulled out a reference binder with that image. I've identified some of the people. I have not identified her. It's really just a matter of time and contacting the archive at Yerkes. The observatory now is no longer functioning. It's strictly open for tours. The University of Chicago is divested of the land. It's up in Wisconsin. But no, obviously she's standing next. There's a gentleman to the left of Einstein with glasses who looks quite distinguished. And I don't, that is Edwin B. Frost. I've identified him. And whether she's one of the people that work at the observatory or whether she's related to Frost, I don't know. Yeah, there it is.
Thanks. Yeah, I just pulled it back up so everybody could take one more look at it.
But Einstein, when he came to Chicago, he gave a lecture at the University of Chicago, and then he went on up to the observatory to see the telescope and you know, meet with the staff as well. It was quite an honor for the observatory to have Einstein pay that visit.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy, is the marble dag from a cemetery?
I don't think so, because I think it's probably from inside a building, because it's worn, but it's not that worn. When I got it, it was also in a mildewed box, and it was really gross, and it seemed to be covered with, like, I don't know, like incense. So it could have been a church. I don't know. Some memorial to somebody. But the woman is alive in the photo. She's also standing next to my marble column. So that's why I'm pretty sure it's from Italy. And that kind of soft marble probably went away. They used it up pretty fast. So yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks. I see that Cindy Dio is suggesting that maybe the guy with the spiked boots could be a telegraph lineman.
Yeah, that crossed my mind too. But there wasn't any other tools in the room in the scene to indicate that. Other stuff I've seen, like climbing tools or like ropes or wire or something, but who knows?
Good point.
It's for big fun.
Oh, I like this question from Doug Johnson. He's asking if each of you can identify your current priorities for further development.
To get it organized and sorted. Because I'm still buying it. I keep buying and I keep adding to the pile instead of making the pile get smaller.
I'll address that too, especially during the pandemic. But actually, this has been going on for about 5 years, and that's cataloging the collection.
Yeah.
The process, you rediscover things that have been tucked away, which is rewarding. And also writing about, doing research and writing about things that you've acquired has been a focus of mine, much more so than acquiring more material. Strategically, I'll add something to the collection that adds to what I already have, but I'm more into the elements of connoisseurship and understanding the objects that are in the collection.
I still like to buy. I'm a compulsive, I think somebody described collectors as compulsive buyers. So I'm still looking to add to my collection. But the longer you are at it, the more you do develop that connoisseurship. You want the more rare material, the better condition, the things that very few others have. So
has your vision changed over time for what you're acquiring? Like, have you moved the bar?
Well, I recognize some of the areas that I'm weak on, and I try to give that particular attention. You know, I was a little weak on a lot of these Indian groups sent delegations to Washington, D.C., and there's a whole group of photographs of from these episodes. And I've been a little weak on that initially, but in the last couple of years, I found some rare things. So, you know, I have little areas like that, and then also to fill in the work of particular photographers. I'm always on looking for other Stanley Morrow stereo views, or I'll always be trying to add to the fly material, that kind of thing.
Nice. So related to a little bit of what Len and Wally were saying, Ron McCready is asking about how you store your collections.
Jeez. It's all timey. It goes in a sleeve before it goes in the drawers. So archival sleeves, and I have a couple drawers that I'm working on that are in a database, and the rest of the drawers aren't. So one step at a time. It's a big job.
Yeah, I support what Cindy said. Our archival sleeves, you gotta make sure they're archival and in a dry place. The photographs I have on the walls, we have our windows all treated with UV screen film to minimize the sunlight. And other than today, to let the light in, I normally have the blinds up in the room. And also when you have things hanging on the walls, rotating them so that just like when a museum displays an image, typically 6 months, then they rotate and put it into storage and give it a rest. So it's a significant responsibility, because you want to preserve this material. You don't want to be part of having it destroyed. So there's a responsibility in that regard.
Yeah, I would just say these all these archival materials are really relatively inexpensive and easily to find on the internet and some of the resources. So I second and third that find those archival materials and preserve your items that way.
And also this issue of conservation is something that needs to be very cautiously approached, especially with daguerreotypes. I do not clean daguerreotypes. I do not have them cleaned. That's a personal preference. Actually, a daguerreotype is a metallurgical object, and it's more than just a photographic emulsion on paper. A daguerreotype is quite unique. So they need to be treated extremely careful. And the biggest threat to a daguerreotype typically is heat. So the worst thing, the worst fear of a collector would be a fire or anything photographic.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's see. Valerie says that she's often struck by the very elaborate furniture in studio photographs. And do any of you, and she was saying maybe Cindy, ever acquire images out of interest in that furniture?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've got all the goofy props. You know, everybody accepted all that stuff as natural, but now you see a photograph and you go, are they taking a picture of the prop or the person? It's pretty interesting. But they accept it as normal. It's there's a Facebook page just on props and backdrops. So,
Oh, really? Oh, that's
yeah,
fun to look at.
yeah. There's no political drama there, so it's good, easy to watch.
It sometimes can be quite incongruous. We were had a conversation with some of the student interns earlier about photographs of very well-dressed, urbane people taken in a big city photographic studio, and there's hay bales, you know, on the floor, and in a country picket fence. And what is the explanation? I don't think there is one. Sometimes I think it's what the photographer had.
Then there's that Southworth and Hawes lecture by Mike Robinson, where they moved all the props around depending on the light in the room. It's a YouTube video if you search for Mike Robinson. And it's amazing what he can discern. He looks in their eyes to look for reflections, so he knows where the windows are. It's really fabulous.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting down there on time, but maybe I see two others that maybe we should finish answering. Have you ever found information behind a daguerreotype or ambrotype that identified person or persons as being important during their lifetime, like an inventor, politician, writer, etc.?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a portrait of a guy, and it talks about his invention in the back. I don't know where I find it in about an hour and a half, but it's a lot of comments. People write the dates. That's where Sean Nolan, he makes sure that when he does his book that the date matches the clothing, and so a lot of them are dated exactly the date the photo was taken. And sometimes they have their life dates in it, and they have mother of, or sometimes you can't even read it because it's so small. There's so much writing in there. You got to like blow it up and do all that magic on the scanner. But most of the time they're just empty, or there's a piece of hair in it or something. No.
And any other comments on that, Len?
Well, certainly with the Easterly archive, there's definitely information behind those images in terms of Easterly's wife, and there's a newspaper clipping advertising his gallery. But those images were never tampered with. But as was said in one of these earlier podcasts, you've got to be very careful because things do get switched around.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a critical eye in passing those judgments.
Right. All right. Barbara Prince is wondering who the two men sitting down in the Otto photo were.
Can we go back? Can we go back and refresh my, because there were 4 photos.
Yeah.
Gotta figure out this way. Nope, maybe not. Hold on, I gotta remember what order they're in.
You want to go forward to a higher number. Yeah. There.
Just
So
one button.
fast.
Okay.
This one.
The two men. So on the left is William Fawfaw. So he was the chief who had the vision. And these are all Oto men, all members of the tribe, all chiefs. The fellow, the second from the left, his name is, I think it's Parthame. I may not be pronouncing it correctly. Then the third from the left is Opernima. And then the fourth is again Whitehorse, the man we see in the vertical photograph to the left. Although in this instance, he's wearing a different one of these beaded frock coats that, and we can't, those hands are associated to some degree with, as a possible element related to the religious movement. But mostly what we look for are the cedar tree, the buffalo skulls, 6-point stars, and the men with the horses that are usually towards the bottom of the coat. And this imagery would also be displayed on shirts and breechcloths and vests. So there's some number of examples that have survived. I think we've found about 6 coats in museum collections around the country, including one at the Detroit Institute of Arts. Once they reopen, I can't remember if it's on display currently, but you might want to check that out.
So how about these two men that are sitting on the floor?
Good question. Those are the photographers, William Lenny and William Sawyers.
Oh, cool.
Lenny and Sawyers. Oh, the only known photo, well, there is another photograph of Lenny, I believe, but at a much older, as an older man. But so this is, I don't know of any, this is maybe unique to the Clements collection.
Great. Thank you. Okay, well,
Angela, can I just make a brief comment?
yes.
Okay. As I've gotten to know the Clements Library, and certainly William Clements built the library to house his collection of Americana, and I've gotten to know the library, its holdings, and its staff, I've found that it's a very friendly place to collect for collectors. And I think that's significant because that isn't always the case with certain hold institutions. I think sometimes collectors are not recognized, but certainly at the Clements, they are, and they're welcomed to come and do research and just talk to the curators. And I think a good case in point is the book that the Clements just published the end of last year called Americana is a Creed. And it's a notable 20th century collectors, dealers, and curators. And I think that's significant. So thank you.
Thanks, Len.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you,
thanks for
Glenn.
being there, you guys.
You know, I will just say that the Clements would be nothing without the contributions of collectors, and you know, starting with William Clements himself. But everything of significance we have was shaped by a collector.
Yes, and we're amazed always at how much knowledge you all have, and that's a huge part of it. I mean, Len, the detail that you go into in your research, and you know, sitting with Dick and learning more about each of those photographs, it's really been a pleasure. And Cindy coming to help us out at What's in Your Attic. It's so much fun. So
Let's do that again.
I know. I bet it won't happen this September, but we'll aim for 2021. All right, everybody. That was great. Thank you so much. We'll be sending out an email with the recording and with resources that were mentioned today. So thank you so much for participating, Dick, Len, and Cindy, and Clayton for leading that conversation. Have a great night, everybody.
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Cool.